Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this regular meeting of Fernie City Council held on May 26, 2026. Kisugukit, the city of Fernie, is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded territory of Yakutat First Nation. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. The Kanahunik are from Yakutat and are members of the Ktunaxa-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. With that, I'll call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. and ask for a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation: that the agenda be amended to add a late item to correspondence 14.2, a letter of response from the Ministry of Transportation and Transit regarding the Hartley Creek Bridge construction dated May 21st, 2026, and that the agenda of the May 26, 2026 regular meeting be adopted as amended. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Adia Kelly. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. I'll now ask for a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation: that the minutes of the May 12th, 2026 regular meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. And a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation: that the minutes of the May 19th, 2026 special meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Audi Kelly, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. And finally, that the following recommendation: that the minutes of the May 20th, 2026 special meeting with the Yakutat First Nation be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. I'll now open the floor to public participation and invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. The speaker may only address a council for a maximum of 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to state their full name and community of residence upon approaching the podium.
Your Worship and Council, we have Geordie Goethals in the gallery this evening.
Welcome. Yep. Perfect.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Geordie Goethals from 34 Coal Creek Road. I'm addressing you today regarding our previous proposal on April 21st on behalf of the Fernie Outdoor Rink Society. Firstly, I'd like to thank the city staff for the expeditious delivery of their report. Turning things around in just over a month is quite an impressive timeline, so very much appreciated on our side. We found it to be a well-balanced assessment in general, although would like to highlight a couple of points. There was multiple challenges identified with regards to our proposed location in the report. Firstly, safety concerns regarding stray equipment and children. Although we don't disagree there is some level of risk there, we do not believe it to be higher than what was at the existing or previous location. The rink will still be more than 10 meters or approximately 10 meters from Pine Avenue. There will be a pathway in between. So we generally believe that that is something we can mitigate. Infrastructure and storage visibility. It's not uncommon to see supporting infrastructure. It would be our opinion that using due decision analysis and decision quality, it probably should not factor into your decision making. That would be our view, of course. Distance to utilities, there was comments around the distances are further for our proposed location. We've been working with the field house. In fact, the utilities will be closer, assuming that their project moves forward as planned, and they are open to working with us and possible cost sharing as well. So in fact, the utilities should be quite close. There was also a comment around impact to mountain views from the pool and the parking lot. Similar to my other point, we are blessed with many good views in this town. The views from a parking lot probably shouldn't be part of a high level of decision quality for a decision like this, would be our view. Similarly, from inside a pool. Parking, we fully admit that there is a parking challenge. There already is on certain days of the year. The field house as well as our facility would exasperate that. We believe there are solutions to that. There are many things that I think we could sit down and work together and collaborate on to solve these problems, be it things like potentially angle parking on Pine Avenue, parallel parking on Pine Avenue, expansion of parking facilities on the site. So we're more than happy to work with you on that. But do not believe that it should be a showstopper in the decision-making. Running short on time here, so just want to maybe highlight that we do wish to move quickly. We very much appreciate that this is being moved through your process quickly, and a timely decision is important to us. We do not want to be a burden to the taxpayer. That is certainly not our intent, and of course, moving forward, that would not be our case. But from our view, the risk and liability associated with our facility would be very small to the taxpayer. So, did my best. The rest is in your email.
Thank you, Mr. Gutholz.
We have no one else, Your Worship.
No one online?
No one online.
Thank you. And that brings us in a timely fashion to item 11.1, Fernie Outdoor Rink Society proposal, a report from our Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Bornowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you to Jordy and the society as well. We had a prompt meeting, discussed a lot of information. That was a good experience. I have a brief presentation, then happy to take questions. It is a preliminary review. As Jordy noted, as has been noted previously, it's a very preliminary proposal, and it doesn't mean it's not without merit. It just is at an early stage still in a lot of details. But as I step through it, just to review, they are proposing about approximately 75% of an NHL-sized ice rink. That's a 170 by 75-foot outdoor rink at the Aquatic Center ground. The Society's proposal is to locate it near Pine Avenue, which you've seen in your report. I also have a screenshot later in this presentation. It is proposed to be in 3 phases. Phase 1 being a natural ice rink, base, boards, lighting, utilities added in for that. Phase 2, roof cover, and then phase 3 moving into a refrigeration plant. The Society had a 1.18 to 2.3 million total project estimate. We haven't really been able to verify that simply because it is a preliminary estimate. And as the Society has said, and is understandable, they're not going into spending money on detailed design, on phases for the future, or on really refined costing for some of this. Our assumption, as is noted in the report, is that if the city or another organization were to simply tender that kind of a structure, though, you'd be looking at significantly more money, at least the very high end of that estimate, if we were, say, to just go to market and procure it to have it built. Some very preliminary math looking as an example at the structure in the Annex Park, the covered pavilion there. If we size that up, we're estimating north of 1.5 million for that roof structure alone. So that's sort of that would be our cost estimate if we were to go and procure that and get permits and have it installed. That's not to say that that's what they're building. It's just a comparator for council's information of a large covered area at a certain standard. As noted, we reviewed siting options. The Society's preferred site is on Looker's Left near Pine Avenue. In conversation between planning and the Director of Parks, Facilities and Recreation, we flagged there might be a potential opportunity to locate at the existing basketball courts. There is potentially space there, although we acknowledge there's some displacement of the pump track, but it is it leaves some of the rest of the site less encumbered, is by the covered area for throwing on skates or for staging, if you will. And we thought there was rationale for exploring it, and so brought that forward to the Society and to the Fernie Trail Alliance, who have a maintenance agreement for 2 areas comprising about half of the site. Notably not the Pine Avenue site, but intersecting with this potential alternative. In terms of the Pine Avenue site, there are pros and cons. It is flat, easy to develop, high visibility, easy to access. Other users, being the FTA, support the location because it does not infringe upon their current active use. Cons, in terms of our point of view, is we do lose the best remaining flexible land if we were to look to develop that property more comprehensively in the future. Eliminates the overflow parking that is already being used when we have swim meets, and we believe will be used more frequently as there will be continual programming at the field house in addition to the existing aquatic center programming. And we know that lot is near capacity when we have aquatic center programming. The utility connections as they sit are further away and costlier, although Jordy had noted the development of the field house could relocate those and provide near connection. And we had some safety concerns. Having an amenity like that near Pine Avenue, are people going to be sprinting across the tracks or across the road to get from Maintown to that rather than going to the crosswalk and then traversing the property? We did suggest the alternative of the baseball courts to get some feedback. We believe it does preserve future land. If nothing else is developed, it is the lowest possible utility costs. It retains the overflow parking. And if the society weren't able to raise funds to construct this season, there is that pad there. And if possible, this winter, that could be flooded and used as a small-scale outdoor rink. It's a concrete surface already on the property. Cons, both the society and the Fernie Trail Alliance are not positive on the site. And I don't want to underrepresent that. It's clear that that's not their preferred location. It does impact the Fernie Trail Alliance pump track area to some degree, and definitely does impact a proposal that the Fernie Trail Alliance has been waiting for master planning to be completed to bring forward themselves to create a paved pump track and a further facility upgrade to the dirt jumps and skill park. And it is simply unclear if there's energy and will to advance the project in an area where there will be the need for planning and collaboration and adjustment to user groups. Stakeholder positions were provided in the report. The Outdoor Rink Society prefers the proposed site near Pine Avenue. Not very positive on the basketball court location for the reasons they clearly stated. Fernie Trail Alliance shared that they support the project and the site near Pine, do not support the basketball courts, but do prefer that a recreation master plan be completed first before permanent infrastructure decisions are made. That being said, as noted in the report, we looked at our key policy and bylaw considerations. In policy 5, there's a number of policies in section 5 that direct planning and working towards an outdoor ice rink and accessible amenities, and specifically recognize the benefit to the community and economic opportunities, specifically around tourism. The Leisure Service Master Plan contemplates the development of the aquatic center grounds and does support providing year-round amenities and connectivity, and does reinforce the importance of sustainable life cycle planning. The site constraints with the dirt jumps and pump track and the skills area and outdoor volleyball and the field house and this project and other user interests, the site is more constrained than it appears. There's not a lot of free space, and so staff remain a little concerned about advancing new projects without planning for the site itself. And we just don't have clarity on the next two items. The operating model, we believe that there'll be some capacity needed for operations, maintenance, and financial management. I believe the society has the capacity for that. However, it does become significantly more complicated as development occurs. So as the roof needs building permits and engineering, and then installation, and then a reserve or maintenance. And then if we're adding an ice plant, and if we're adding any sort of ice machine like a Zamboni, then all of a sudden there are tickets and permits and maintenance and procedures and WorkSafe that become a lot more complicated. Not to say impossible, just more complicated than a simple outdoor rink. The cost implements or cost estimates, as noted, are a bit preliminary, which makes sense. The society is looking for commitment from council before investing significantly in refining design. And in terms of a land use agreement, this we had a discussion with the society and legal counsel, and then looked at other municipalities. And while I have been looking at licenses of occupation or land use agreements as alternatives to long-term leases or other dispositions, I think in this case, the consensus is that a lease is likely most appropriate if council is directing advancement. Public notice is required, but then the property essentially does become the Fernie Outdoor Rink Society's to manage, develop, maintain, and we have some guardrails that we can put into a lease and into any sort of partnering or operating agreement that we set up, but it does protect the taxpayer to the strongest degree in terms of if the society ceases operating or breaches a lease, we have the opportunity to step in and rectify that or require something be rectified, but it also moves us further away from the liability concerns, which are important to note. Hockey and ice skating is not a no-risk activity, and so the municipality needs guardrails around it to protect itself, as we do with our existing arena. That being said, all that being said, the lease would be the most appropriate type of land use agreement to pursue, in staff's opinion. Options to consider if council wishes to advance the proposal. We would recommend approaching it in a similar fashion as with both the commercial and affordable housing project at 692 3rd or with the Field House. And that begins with a formal letter of support confirming intent to lease the land to the society at the Pine Avenue site. Step 2 would be then to direct the society to further develop their design, costing, any partnerships, the operating model or models before a lease is executed. We do recommend the council request year-round multi-use design and programming be a requirement of that plan. The site is constrained. This should function in all 4 seasons. It's a lesson we've learned with single season infrastructure. And the society is interested in that, so I don't think there's a rub there. And then step 3 would be to develop and execute a lease upon receipt and presentation to council of the refined design and plan. And that's a very straightforward matter. We do have a model in terms of the Field House lease, which would be very similar. In there's likely a survey or at very least a sketch plan. So there's a minor outlay of funds and a minor outlay of funds to legal counsel. But in general, this would provide the society confidence in terms of a letter of support that upon receipt of a supportable plan and design and some firm numbers around costing and the operating concept, the council would turn around then and provide the land and security to continue fundraising and build. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baranowski. Questions, comments from council? Well, I can kick it off. And so I appreciate the work that's gone into this and the responsiveness of staff. And of course, I've always appreciated the work that the Outdoor Rink Society has put in. Am I mistaken that there was and I know this probably refers back to leisure services management plan or to and maybe it's even a more notional conversation than that there was a site A, site B development for the dirt jumps. And there was additional land closer to call it Cold Creek Road, Pine Crescent, that they had that were potentially earmarked for development for them. Am I misremembering that or?
No, you're not. That's part of their maintenance agreement. I don't have a screenshot handy at the moment, but you're correct. The area that is currently the dirt jumps and the skill park along along the east side of the property is area A. I might have A and B confused, but area A. And then the area to the south of the outdoor rink, all along the border of that property, there's quite a large wedge that is area B. And both are under a land use agreement with the Fernie Trail Alliance.
Okay.
Correct. There are conceptual designs that see different things in both those spaces.
And I know, they of course have been reluctant to advance a paved pump track, what is effectively a permanent piece of infrastructure without a leisure services management plan in place, so they know where they're going. Was there ever a potential to have that on, we'll call it area B, the south segment, versus where it currently is and where the basketball courts are?
Through to council, I think the word reluctant might be just a little off in that staff have requested that we do land use planning, and so they've held their plans.
Sure.
They're very keen to advance them, but recognize the importance of planning for that kind of investment. I don't recall seeing a pump track situated in the south area. I recall it being co-located with the dirt jumps where it is now.
Okay.
Although The large line or the Wham Bam line was, I've seen a design and we do have in our files a design that shows it running east to west on the south side of the existing outdoor rink where the field house will go, where you could have a variety of large jump lines.
Okay.
Yeah, in that area. We hadn't
Okay,
advanced those beyond a conceptual stage with the Fernie Trail Alliance, though.
thank you. Councilor Reminis.
Thanks, Your Worship. CEO, can you just clarify what the timeline is for us to get the recreational leisure plan advanced? The reason I'm asking is coming back from the committee of the whole meeting last time when I asked about the nonlinear assets plan, we said it was deprioritized. Are these two connected or are they not?
The the facility asset capital plan hasn't been deprioritized. It's just been delayed with that director being called to other pressing matters at the time being, but he is advancing it presently. Jeremy, you may want to correct me, but I think with our OCP expected to be completed midway through next year, we'd then be initiating the leisure service master plan effort at the conclusion of the OCP, and I would anticipate probably a year-long effort for that, approximately. Yeah.
Further?
One more question, Your Worship. Is there a world where it is possible for us to keep advancing this while with the idea that there is a leisure services master plan that is coming in a couple of years' time, but then not slow this down?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, can we have like a parallel process of these two things going in conjunction with each other?
I certainly, I think this advancing just says this is going to be happening here. And so then your leisure services master plan, if this is not complete by that time, your leisure services master plan or your site plan within that for this aquatic center property or the needs for future development that are identified there would consider it's going to be, or it already is, the home of the outdoor rink.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. It makes sense, CEO. The reason I'm asking this is kudos to the society. They have done a phenomenal job. This is, again, to your point, not fully costed out. It is still early stages. Like, I see this more as a feasibility report that will come out, a couple of months' time. They'll
Mhm.
go back, do their work. They'll figure out how much it'll actually cost from a very, conceptual level to an actual facility level details. So that is going to take some time. And you're right, there might be some underestimation of certain costs, certain challenges, things like those, but that is expected. Like, that is the nature of building large projects, right? So what I'm trying to say is, when I say advancing, what I mean is for the society to go back and do its work in the background, while from our end, could we just advance the leasing agreement too, with the idea that the master plan is coming its way in a year's time. That way, we are not slowing anything down and also have a robust plan that is going on in the background.
And sorry, Mr. Baranowski, before you answer, because that was one of my questions. Was there a methodology whereby, as the society is advancing its interests and we're working on with them to advance the entire project, is there a world where I'm going to say this, it's going to sound like I'm being potentially defeating the idea of the location. I don't mean it to be like, but there's that they can operate in that location that they presented, but until we know for sure, it's not a permanent structure. So there's a membrane, or there's, rather than a slab immediately in there, there is some way that it can operate there. Again, as we've done before, proof of concept, it can run there, it can operate there, parking, all those things. To Councilor Ramdas's point, while we then also engage in the leisure services master plan and look at that site in a more holistic way, and everybody is fully engaged. So then we know everybody's got input and we all know what the outputs are.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Councillor Ramadas's question, I think there's always a tool. I think once you start building, if you are pouring a pad and building boards, you're going to have a thing there. Until you're either maintaining it or not maintaining it, and then something else is going to happen with it. Once something's built there, it's very hard to turn it back into an unbuilt space. That's the reality of community development, right? Of capital development communities. In terms of developing concurrently, and further to Your Worship's question, if you're asking if there's the potential to develop something that can be erected, established, a membrane down, maybe not poured concrete, but a membrane used, and then potentially if 2 years down the road, a different location or a shift on the site or a modified vision is developed, I'm certain all of that is possible. My question would be, would you like staff to take on the research of what semi-permanent or interim outdoor rinks are, or engage with a society to bring back a modified proposal, determine if the society is interested in that, and then bring back a modified proposal? Because we haven't done the research to know what our options are. And I'm sure that there are boards that can be tilted up and used. I grew up skating all over the place in the country, and every farmer around had a ice rink sized dugout, but we haven't done that research ourselves.
No, fair enough. And at this juncture, I'm not asking you to do that. I was just asking the question in terms of the timeline of things.
Your Worship, I'm certain there are, just as there are tilt-up buildings that are permanent or semi-permanent or movable. I think that there are temporary solutions. And I would just note that the proposal from the society is to get a long-term lease and get to fundraising to build a permanent matter. So there'd be some negotiating to determine whether there's continued interest in that temporary option.
Of course, understood. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. My question was in a very similar vein of thought to all of this, but perhaps a little bit more specifically in thinking farther into the future, particularly phase 3 and the implementation of a NICE plant. How would we go about in the leasing and in the program development here, ensuring that everything is sited such that, either working with the Fieldhouse Society or future renovation plans with the pool, that we're integrating the mechanical systems, waste heat, waste cooling can be transferred back and forth, just to try and make sure that we're being as efficient as possible and not just creating net extra greenhouse gases or energy consumption.
That's a very good question. I think it's generally straightforward with the Fieldhouse Society at present. We anticipate a building permit application in the near future. Servicing has been planned or should be planned and designed and should be coming in. And coordinating directly with the Outdoor Rink Society and the Fieldhouse, the Elk Valley Fieldhouse Society should be straightforward. In terms of the future plans for the site and expansion to the Aquatic Center, it brings us back. We do not have a plan for that site. We don't know what the expansion of the Aquatic Center looks like. There are two different concepts. The last one was massive. We had started some value engineering and due diligence work on whether scoping that down made it more feasible within the realities of the size of our community, but then hit pause, waiting to get the OCP done and then get into planning. So we understood what the community really wants at this day and age in that kind of a center. And so I can't answer on what our potential future needs are.
Thank you. Councillor McIsaac.
Oh, thank you, Worship. I have a variety of thoughts on this, so this might be a bit of a weave here. I remember when the dirt jump park was put in, and the discussion at the time was it was only temporary because we were going to be expanding services It was already recognized that some of our recreational facilities were at end of life at that time and that we were going to need to building, and the east side of the aquatic center was planned for some sort of recreational complex, possibly including an arena, et cetera, et cetera. This was all discussed at the time that the dirt jump park was put in. It is very difficult to imagine at this point getting rid of the dirt jump park to build a new facility. I am very hesitant to use the word temporary about anything at this point, because once something gets built, it becomes incredibly difficult to move it or get rid of it. Having said all that, in the absence of a current plan, the most recent plan showed the area that is south where the basketball courts, potential pump park and so on, as the location for an increase in recreational complex development. That's what was in the 2013 Leisure Services Master Plan. In the absence of a current one, I see no reason not to assume that that is going to continue forward, and that would suggest that the alternative plan of putting the outdoor rink where the basketball court is now is a bad idea. Now, if it were the type of structure, as the CAO was talking about, where many small towns have a lightweight structure for doing an outdoor arena, I think that would be easy to digest for everyone, knowing that it's probably as easy to move as it is to set up. Once we start considering concrete slabs, roof structures, ice plants, I can't imagine no council or staff of the future having the will to uproot that in favor of building another complex that wasn't planned at the time, or was conceived of but not planned of at the time. So of the two choices, it would appear that the spot that's closest to Pine Avenue is the least conflict with the current existing plan. Having said that, I'm not super excited about putting anything over there in the absence of a plan. At least not something that's going to be essentially permanent once it gets rolling. Temporary structures, sure, something with a membrane and boards thrown up. Happy to see something like that get placed, but I really don't think that's what the Outdoor Rink Society wants to get to. They want to get to a place where Fernie has a permanent outdoor rink where people can go and skate outside for a lot, which is great. And frankly, as we've all learned, if you don't put a roof on it and you don't have some mechanism to support ice, what you get is about 20 days of skating out of the year, and the rest of the time you're not skating. So those things appear to be necessary in order to realize that plan. I would like to know, have we looked at any other locations? Like one, and I'm going to throw this out there, don't throw spears at me, but as an example, the area in Annex Park, which was originally designated for snow dumping, has been unused for decades now. There is power running to the park. There is water in the park. It's not close to it, but it could be made to work. A good significant number of people are on the other side of the tracks or closer to it. Nothing is planned for that location. Could happily set up an arena there. It could be turned into pickleball courts in the summer, all that stuff, with no compromise to our ability to do future development on that current recreation site. You know, in the past, it's been discussed about potentially moving the arena there and freeing up all that highway frontage and moving that site over there. The community center's already closed. That site's going to be free. The curling rink. You start to imagine putting a few places over there. There's not that much space. So I'm reluctant to support putting another permanent structure over there. I'd really like us to consider a new location, or if we're going to consider putting the outdoor rink over there, it should be in a configuration that it can be moved, if that's what the future Leisure Services Master Plan suggests. And I would, as a go forward communication, it should be the case that the Leisure Services Master Plan should consider the full use of that site, irrespective of whether or not the outdoor rink is built there, even and irrespective of whether the dirt jump park is there, because the dirt jump park can be rebuilt somewhere else as well. So, and that all these things, of course, they cost time and they cost money and so on, and I appreciate that, but I'm reluctant to constrain future councils and their ability to provide the best possible recreational facilities for our community. So anyway, that's where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Audie Kelly?
I've thought about it quite a bit and a bit about what both what Councillor McIsaac just said and also what CAO just said. So realistically speaking, the site is significantly constrained as it is. What is our field house agreement, I believe, is 30 years, CAO? And what is our land use agreement length with the FTA?
I think it's a 3-year rolling agreement, and I'm unsure if it expires this year or next year. I
Okay.
mean, we typically run them on 3-year renewals.
So we've had 3-year rolling agreements with them. We have a 30-year agreement with the field house. We have an aging aquatic center that I really can't feasibly imagine hooking new leisure facilities to an aging pool, right? Like the Leisure Services Master Plan was created in 2013. The last OCP was 2014. Here we are in 2026 working on another one. It's going to be 2028 at minimum before we have a new Leisure Services Master Plan. In the meantime, what? Right? We just halt everything. We have the daycare and housing there now, which is taking up a considerable amount of that site. I feel like the site realistically is constrained. And I think your point, Councillor McIsaac, that people are loath to move things is accurate. The FTA does have plans that they would like to advance, and they'd like to advance them there. So I think in consideration of all those things, the space on Pine, which is currently grass and trees and certainly looks pretty, is available because my recall of the aquatic plan was that back area, right? From the aquatic center, hooking onto that existing aquatic center and using where the dirt jumps are. So to me, I would like to see us continue discussions. If we approached it the same way we approached with the field house, the society then has the opportunity to say, hey, like, can we make this viable? Are our numbers fairly accurate? Can we do the funding? Can we really do this? Because I think if we're just going to be really realistic, that might not be where a future leisure site goes. If we talk to tourism, the study that they did, yes, that site is one of the sites that they looked at, but there's also others. We've also talked about Coal Creek Road, Your Worship, and what we could do down there to change a brownfield into something much better. So my worry is, how long do we wait? We've got linear assets that we really need to focus on. We don't even have a facilities master plan yet. How long do we stall it out and then nothing happens?
Councillor Shoesmith?
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Just letting all that settle for a second. Several things. Firstly, unequivocally, I support the grassroots nature of this. I was involved in the establishment of the original one, and you know, there's kind of a tension here, right, between the top-down, systemic, technocratic, expert-led, this is the plan and this is what we're going to do, versus the sort of grassroots, chaotic hodgepodge that it's just emergent. And I actually think one of the best things about Fernie is that nature that it has. Let's be real. The city of Fernie, this organization, is undergoing an awful lot of planning, redoing plans, updating things. There's a huge workload that way. And I frankly think that a facility, or sorry, not the facilities, the recreation master plan should probably take a backseat in terms of our firepower to the facilities work and as Councillor Audie Kelly mentioned, the quote unquote linear assets, which is such a strange word for the pipes. But just to be real here, like, we can have a giant plan for a giant recplex, and there's a lot of people floating around pushing for one, wanting one. But we need to look at things clearly. We have a town that's facing an enormous amount of infrastructure spending in the coming decades. It's going to take some staying power. It's going to take a bunch of different councils focusing on that, shoring up those reserves and picking on those projects. It's going to be a long time before we're in a position where building a large recplex on the taxpayer dime would be wise. And I think in the interim, and by interim, I don't mean a short time, I mean perhaps for a decade or two or more, this grassroots-led sort of messy hodgepodge is, I think, the best we're going to get. And bang for our dollar, we're providing, if this thing comes to fruition, it's going to be a great amenity at not no cost to the taxpayer, but very low comparatively. Like, you can't get a better deal than that. And that, I think, should enable us to refocus our efforts where it's better spent. There's problems, you know, we're going to have to deal with parking if we support this. And I think we should. But for my money, I really lean towards the grassroots nature of this. The groups involved that have put in their time and their effort and really are putting themselves there to do this because they care, and they're at the ground level. I really weight their collective opinions more so than ours, I think. Thank you.
Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. You know, I grew up playing hockey, and I love playing hockey outdoors. So I'm a little bit biased. It's some of the best memories I've ever had. It's like frozen toes, frozen nose, not being able to see over the boards. And I think these people are trying to do this for our community. It's some of the best memories I've had in my life. So I just hope that climate change doesn't rear its ugly worm head and make the numbers of skatable days less than we had last year. It's just like, it's one of these things. It's really disconcerting. We have this group, we have a group here who want to do it. And I say we give them a lease for 10 years and see where it goes. We put in a semi-permanent structure there now. And then if they get to phase 2 or phase 3 in that time, then so be it. It's good. We have they seem to be dedicated. The emails seem to be very professional. You know, and I can't see us doing anything with that land at this point, but you know, we don't have a recreation master plan for that area. So I'm in support of this, and I think that we're overcomplicating it by thinking about the parking requirements and the like. I mean, as one of our former directors said, we don't have a parking problem in this town. We have a walking problem, and I don't think that should stand in the way of kids being on the ice. So those are my thoughts.
No, and I appreciate that, and how you've echoed other thoughts in terms of just the moving time horizon, right? Like, we have a proposal before us. We don't have leisure services master plan. We don't know when that's going to happen. We don't know when, you know, things just keep moving. And in terms of our priorities, to Councillor Shoesmith's point, at what point is the site going to be fully developed anyway? I mean, that's a bit crass to put it that way, but it's a fair question. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I was wondering, Mr. Bornos, can you just put the last slide with the steps that you had there? Just procedurally, I'm just curious, based on the plans that were there, where, if we advance this, what the next step was again. Like, how is this going to play out for the organization, for the Outdoor Rink Society rather? And as far as, you know, are we advancing the lease straight away, or do we wait? Yeah, okay. So we will have issued the letter supporting our, or confirming our support, and we can direct them potentially to come back with their full costing and kind of step-by-step plan that way.
Thank you through to council. Yeah, the proposed approach is really modeled after what seems to have worked well with the Elk Valley Fieldhouse Society and with the Elk Valley Family Society. And that is a formal letter of support, provides partners and funders with an indication of council's commitment. A 30-year lease of, north of $1 million worth of land, in the center of town is no small thing. And so as staff, we always recommend the council approach that nested within their master plans so they know they're headed in the right direction. Council's right. In the absence of a master plan, what are you doing? And that's a difficult question to answer. But this proposal is what I would call the cleanest path, where we provide the society comfort and confidence that council wants to move in this direction. And then based on that confidence, they can invest more efforts and come back to council and then lock in when council is satisfied that they have the details they want to then dispose of those public lands to the society.
Okay. So just for clarity, for tonight, you would simply be asking us to advance step 1.
Yeah, if council were looking to advance the project tonight at the proposed location, my recommendation would be that you do so by issuing a formal letter of support confirming intent to lease the land to the society upon receipt of a more fully fleshed plan, including like design, operating plan, basic costing. Yep.
Okay. Councilor McIsaac?
Thank you, Worship. I'd first like to say, I very much agree with the sentiment that I'm hearing around the table from everyone. I'm very supportive of this group and their dedication to getting this amenity back rolling and so on. And my hesitation has nothing whatsoever to do with the outdoor rink or their sincerity or any of those things. My hesitation here comes from a couple things. One, I don't believe we've actually explored any other options. I think we, by virtue of inertia and momentum, are continuing to explore putting the outdoor rink somewhere close to where it already was. And we're not considering any other location. And I think we should. I think that should be part of the discussion. There are places in the community, as the one that I suggested, where a fully built roofed structure with a plant that won't be driving the neighbors who are only 100 feet away on Pine Avenue crazy from the noise and so on. There are places that we can consider putting it that are still within town and walking distance for most people. I haven't even discussed it. The only thing we've looked at is somewhere on that configuration, at least within the context of this here. I too agree there is little value in forcing every group that wants to accomplish something in the community to wait until we have a leisure services master plan for which there is no current timeline. So that seems unfair. But what also is unfair is turning away other groups who have asked to make use of that land and then deciding, oh, for this group, we're gonna make an exception. That seems grossly unfair to the other groups that have talked about looking at putting facilities over there. So how are we squaring that choice? Now, one way would be to say, fine, everybody just come and ask. Well, sure, of course you can have a pump track. We'll squeeze it into this corner, and the pickleball courts, we'll squeeze it into that corner. And pretty soon we won't need an actual leisure services master plan because the area will be full. That will solve the problem. I just want to, let's make sure that we're doing that intentionally. That is intent, is to just let people fill up that space with whatever they want to build without necessarily having any plan for it. And if we're okay with that, then fine. But let's make sure we're doing it intentionally, not by accident.
Councilor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. I mean, that really is the rub, right? So this idea of, say, down in the annex, it's actually a wonderful idea. In my mind, the risk here is that we'll sap momentum and this will go away. And I really, really am loath to do that. At this stage, it really could go anywhere. It's an excellent point. Like, why there exactly? But if we start to try and consider every potential option, it's one of those information overload type of scenarios. We could endlessly weigh pros and cons. I wonder, you know, would the what's the term I'm looking for? The letter that we would sign saying that we're committed to allowing them to move forward. Would it necessarily have to marry them to option 1 or 2 at this point? If it didn't, and then I think we should be getting their feedback and little bit of community feedback on this without slowing this down. To Councillor Ramadas's earlier statement, I mean, it's like, well, I want the cake and I want to eat it too, but we really do. And maybe we can.
Councillor Adi Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just out of curiosity, aside from the FTA, what other groups have brought forward proposals that have had the thought and effort put into it that the Rink Society has?
That's a little hard to answer. I mean, we saw a proposal for a very different structure on the quail lots earlier this year that was designed by an architecture and included public amenities like the tennis courts, recreational facilities on the roof. The Aaron Amundsen Pavilion was designed, developed, and then we participated in working with CBT to fund and build that with Fernie Soccer Association. In my experience, those are probably 2 comparable examples, aside from, and it's easy to underestimate the complexity, but aside from some of the linear trails that the Trail Alliance has built. And so if you consider the suspension bridge that's opening this June and the new loop trail, or the flow trails, Contra and Trail Dogs and Updog, the complexity, the design, the land use agreements, the clearing, the planning, all of that represents a couple of years worth of work and hundreds of thousands of dollars and permitting. Those are comparable, and we do see those, although they're not all within Fernie. We see them and are involved in them in some ways as our role as a resort municipality. Those would be comparators. And then we have groups who frequently express the need for space. It's no secret when the community center closed, and you are right, a year after the 2013 Leisure Services Master Plan was minted was the end of life date for the community center. So it lasting till 24 was quite a life extension, but we did not have a great plan for what to do. And then needs came forward, right? We have had requests from gymnastics, from the academy, from soccer, lots of expressed need for increased capacity. I think pickleball is probably the loudest presently, who I believe are coming as a delegation to express their want for land to develop some sort of a facility as well.
Further?
Yeah, just further. So it's specific to the proposed site for the outdoor arena. Really, currently, then it would be the FTA. That would be the other party that is looking specifically at that site. We did get an opportunity to speak to pickleball at the OCP. And yes, they would like to develop more courts. I don't believe it was there, but elsewhere. So yeah, thanks. I just wanted to kind of illuminate that a little bit, because to Councillor McIsaac's point, right? It is a valid point that there would be other groups maybe approaching for other available land in the city.
If I can, to council, when we talk about leisure service master planning, I'm probably not referring to like a layout of those lands to say this bit goes here, this bit goes here, but to the broad community conversation to say, we have X amount of land. What do we want to do with it? Like, what are the community's real interests? And I have no doubt that skating and ice surface is one of the real community interests. I just can't tell you because we haven't done the work. I can't tell you whether it's at the top of the list or second or third, but I do know it's up there and it's a very real need. Our facility is booked out. People want to skate. Yep, both very true.
Well, and I'm sorry, Councilor McIsaac, not to put too fine a point on it, the if I remember correctly, the pickleball folks did suggest the potential of Annex Park and where the bat boxes are, where that former snow dump was. And so there's a potential synergy there in terms of developing, co-developing a site that a couple of parties could use in various seasons, right?
If I get made through to council, we did explore alternative sites. The Outdoor Rink Society remains focused on this site. They have expressed that that's their board's intent, is to pursue this site as their priority.
Understood. Thank you. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. Just to speak to Councillor Shoesmith's point, I also agree. While I feel it is part of my responsibility sitting in this chair to point out the potential issues, I too would really like to see this organization succeed in their particular goal of providing an outdoor rink. So for me, the question isn't whether or not we should support them. We should. The question is how are we supporting them best for them and for the long term of the community? That's solely what I'm getting at here. So I as far as signaling our intent to support the creation of an outdoor skating area, I think we should do that, and I would happily support that. What I would like to, though, is I would like, at least for some short period of time, some discussion and or consideration about potentially another location, removing some of the potential future constraints on that location. As I said, I believe once it's there, it's, it's like luggage. We'll never get rid of it. So, but again, and this is to speak to what CEO Boranowski just said, maybe everybody in the community is okay, but we haven't had that conversation, right? Then maybe that is exactly where everybody would like. And again, we don't have that conversation, but I also don't want to wait the 5 years or 10 years or whatever it's going to take to get that answer. So I would like to find us a way to move forward, support them, give our commitment that we do want an outdoor rink and we are going to get there. And I appreciate that the board believes that that's the only location it can go. I feel like that's a further conversation. And maybe it's a case of there is a short-term solution to setting up the arena there, and it becomes a longer-term plan to find a more permanent long-term home with greater synergy with other activities. Maybe that is a longer-term view. I'd just like to not drop it. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Ramadus.
Thanks, Your Worship. Councillor McIsaac covered a lot of points, but I just wanted to confirm once again, like maybe I should have asked that question to the society when they were here last time. This is the only spot that they are keen on. What that was made 100% clear, did they?
Through to council, they communicated that this is their preferred location. We did discuss alternative sites. This remains their strongly preferred location.
Okay. And would there, sorry, Your Worship, if you would, if there was an opportunity during the course of developing this plan that maybe, to Councillor McIsaac's point, an annex or some other place were to pop up, would that show up in their planning in some shape or form?
Through to council, if you requested that we re-engage with them and do an assessment of alternative locations, I'm sure that we could work with them to provide their specific feedback on alternative locations in the plan that came back. So a letter of support to develop an outdoor rink and a request for a review of potential alternative locations with feedback from the society. I'm sure we could bring that back. It has been made clear to us that this is their preferred site. So that's what we focused on, are the two siting options on this property.
Good. I knew the answer, Your Worship, just wanted to confirm and put it on public record here. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
The question that I was originally going to ask has been answered. I was going to ask about the siting and whether or not, because the question was kind of posed over on that side of the table. I can't remember exactly who it was about. Do we need a specific location in our letter of intent that we send? But, throughout the conversation, in the back of my mind, I'm also not forgetting, as was also mentioned, there is another grand master plan floating around in the community for a facility. And as has been mentioned ad nauseum at this table, you know, we have a lot of infrastructure, the core infrastructure that this organization needs to focus on. So this is an opportunity to potentially, I don't want to say offload, but, you know, shift some of the maintenance and operating responsibilities away from the city to be providing recreational facility to the community onto a dedicated volunteer organization who's keen to take this on. So I want to figure out how we make this happen. I don't want to be the roadblock to this happening. I certainly agree with the sentiment of, have we fully explored all of the other locations? I appreciate that this is the key location that the group wants to choose, but without seeing any sort of rationale for that or exploration of other options, I also don't want us as a community or as a city in our letter to handcuff ourselves to this location if another option is as good or better potentially. So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
Thank you. Councillor Eddie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. This might be not eloquently or elegantly said, but some of the reading and some of the things that I've done, Councillor Hamilton actually, strong towns. Some things grow organically, and there's good reasons for that. And throughout history and throughout civilizations, a lot of towns grew organically, and there's good reasons for that, and worked very well. Like I'm not averse to planning, but I wrote out a list of planning, and sometimes planning means wait and see, wait and see, wait and see. Like the 2013 Leisure Services Master Plan seemed like a really great plan at the time. And as president of minor hockey, I was quite heavily involved in the community consultation side. Have we realized the things in that plan? Not really. Our linear assets, AKA the pipes, right? How much planning and studying and all of these things are we going to do? It's like, where's the action? Sorry, you know? So to me, I do see a group of really dedicated people. I also see that in pickleball. I also see that in rugby. I also see that in the FTA. We have some fantastic organizations in town that want to do things. And the way Councillor Hamilton phrased it, yeah, like we're not saying let's dump it on them or offload it to them, but we've got people willing and coming forward and saying, hey, we can and want to do this. And are we just going to wait forever and leave things not happening? Like that site has grown organically, right? The basketball court, the dirt jumps, there's the pool there. We had the outdoor rink. Now we've decided the field house is a good spot there. So I just feel like we should support this. If in the discussions with staff, they're like, you know, hey, some of the other proposed sites might be worth looking at, great. But I don't want to let this opportunity for the community go. I just don't want to, because we're afraid that we need another plan before we do it.
Councillor Shoesmith.
Thanks again, Mayor Milligan. I just want to point out that I appreciate my colleagues' rigor. I don't view putting things through the ringer as an attack. I view that as being rigorous, and I think that that is important. Anything that we debate should actually be able to survive an argument. There's, you know, the saying, highest and best use. Best is a tough word because it shackles you to the idea that you should make everything perfect. Like there is nothing better than best. So you need to fully consider everything. And one of the issues with planning is it always has a lens, right? When you spend a lot of time planning, you will never be able to incorporate all of the data or even to filter out what's dross sometimes. And so from my view, when something is of a small enough scale that the grassroots can pick it up and run with it, I think that that is probably better. Because the fact that people are willing to pick this up and carry this says to me that it's worth it for them. They're willing to shoulder the burden. And I think by dint of that, I think that they have a pretty big seat here. And I think we should support their proposal unequivocally. Thank you.
Mr. Bornowski, can I ask you to, and you've maybe done this already, but pen a potential resolution for us to advance this? I'll take one more question. Councillor Hamilton.
I was actually going to ask that we move a recommendation to write a letter of intent to pursue a land use or a lease with them. So
Certainly, Your Worship. If we're penning a resolution, I'd like to work with our corporate officer on that. And just to be clear, is the resolution to provide a letter of support for the society confirming council's support for the development of an outdoor rink with the intent to provide land for the project by way of lease? Is that essentially what council is looking for?
Yes.
I might tweak that. And then is there any further and that staff bring the society together with council to discuss potential locations in addition to their proposed site, or is there further material, or is it simply the letter of support and directing staff to work with the society on that?
That would be my preference at this juncture, the letter of support, the way you framed it initially.
Initially? Okay. Yeah, if you can give me 1 minute, I will work on that with Ms. McElwee.
Thank you. I don't know, do we need to recess for that minute, Ms. Fetzko? Or are you okay? Okay.
Yeah, good one.
Okay, Ms. McElwee?
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship and Council, the staff recommendation is that Council provide a formal letter of support to the Society for the development of an outdoor rink with the intent to provide land for the project by way of a lease.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor McIsaac. I'm not going to ask for further discussion, but I should. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. A very rigorous discussion. Thank you for that word, Councillor Shoesmith. Item 11.2. I can't believe you're leaving. Item 11.2, sorry, engineer line, Fairy Creek UV system contract award.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm up here a lot tonight, so let's get this going. So for my first report of this evening, I will be providing a summary of the Fairy Creek UV system tender process and hopefully attain council authorization to contract the installation of UV reactor treatment at the Fairy Creek water treatment plant. A little background, the city is planning to install UV disinfection at the Fairy Creek water source to meet provincial drinking water treatment objectives by doubling the methods of disinfection of Fairy Creek source. Currently, Fairy Creek only has one disinfection with chlorine. This provincial requirement was reflected in the list of conditions Interior Health placed on our permit that allows the city to operate Fairy Creek. Within this condition includes the ability to continue with the filtration exemption. The city is working towards that exemption, with the installation of the UV disinfection system being a key requirement to be considered. Regardless, if an exemption is granted to the city, UV treatment for further disinfection of Fairy Creek will still be required. The project scope is, the large part is, of course, the UV system of 3 reactors that will be installed in the existing valve chamber at the reservoir shown in the picture. The project also includes an electrical upgrade to the site by BC Hydro and updated electrical servicing throughout the site, including a new generator sized to power the future larger facility. Furthermore, a new larger automated flushing system is proposed to turn over the raw water from the source quicker, which allows for easier changes between sources and is necessary for the UV reactor. They don't work well when there's turbidity in the water because the light can't disinfect through stuff. And finally, there are supporting building mechanical improvements like HVAC in this valve chamber and control system upgrades to tie the new treatment into our SCADA system. An invitation to tender was issued April 13th with a closing date of May 8th. 3 completed tenders were received and reviewed for accuracy by our consultant on this project, Associated Engineering. 2 partial tenders were also received as they did not include the full scope of work. They had been declared informal and were not evaluated. Staff were pleased to see 3 full tenders for this project. However, those bids were higher than anticipated. The total scope of construction of the UV system is not just the tender construction costs. There's also the upgrade to the BC Hydro service, the SCADA updates, and the consultant construction services for a total estimated at just under 2.5 million, or $1 million more than was originally estimated. The city's budget was based on a Class C cost estimate provided in 2025, part of preliminary design. Associated Engineering, the consultant, increased their estimate of the cost of the project between preliminary and tender-ready design based on refining the scope and determination of the specific UV reactor requirements. Even then, the Class A cost estimate of 1.85 million, that included a 10% contingency provided by AE for the construction, was less than the bids received. However, the 3 full bids that we did receive are fairly similar in price to each other. This demonstrates that AE perhaps underestimated the cost of building a UV system in a more rural location like Fernie, and also that it is harder to cost estimate things like UV systems, which are built irregularly compared to linear asset replacement.
I'm sorry, what does that mean? Built irregularly, like they respond
not
to
at
site-specific constraints, or?
No, pardon me, not as often
Okay,
as replacements of pipes and sewers and
Okay. Thank you.
manholes.
thanks.
Thank you. Furthermore, construction supervision and contract admin costs proposed for this job are a maximum to ensure sufficient oversight for this important job and ensure uninterrupted potable water supply to the city. So with 1.5 million already approved for the Fairy Creek UV installation, that leaves just under $990,000 unfunded. To fund this $990,000 between the approved budget and the project scope, staff recommend council approve a year 2 budget request at the end of 2026 to complete the work. The ending balance of the water reserve in 2027 will be just over $1 million. There will be sufficient room to pay for this work. However, there won't be any funds left to continue with the IICP to replace high priority water mains in the same year. To address the resulting unfunded linear water upgrade in 2027 or 2028, staff considered the following 3 options. 1, we could push back our IIC replacement plans by a year increasing the risk as current infrastructure gets older. This would represent a reversal of the efforts that were undertaken through the 2026 water and wastewater budget process to secure funding to address the high priority linear infrastructure upgrades on a 5-year horizon, deferring known high priority infrastructure costs out further on that horizon. Secondly, we could undertake short-term borrowing to fund the $990,000 paid over 5 years, funded through a temporary utility fee increase of an initial 11.8% per year over the next 5 years. This would result in about $4.37 extra per month, or $262.22 over 5 years for the average single-family household. Finally, the third option is a 1-year increase to the water utility fee for 2027. During the 2027 water and wastewater budget discussions later this year, staff will review the increase required to support a larger water main replacement program planned for 2028 and bring the program back in line with the short-term water main replacement plan outlined in the IICP. This would result in a 26.78% water utility rate increase in 2027, equivalent to $927 per month, or $1,111.26 over the year for the average single-family household. Staff do recommend council approve a 1-year water utility fee adjustment for 2027 during the water and wastewater budget discussions to keep the IICP replacements on track and limit payback costs to residents. Should council award the tender this evening, construction is anticipated to span several months. Electrical and building mechanical improvements will occur in 2026 from September through November, and then there is a long lead time to actually get those UV reactors in. So installation is scheduled for March and April of 2027. As this upgrade is occurring at the Fairy Creek Water Treatment Plant, there will be little to no disruption to residents day-to-day as the construction is on our site. However, there will be milestone events, including when we transition to the updated electrical system and the installation of the UV reactors that will be carefully scheduled with our contractor and supported by our staff to ensure water supply to the city is uninterrupted. With that, there are 3 recommendations for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments from council? Councilor Ramirez?
Thanks, Your Worship. This is an important project. It's pretty excited about this. Although my next question is not going to sound great. This has been kind of, sorry to say this, but the last 3.5 years, anytime there is public works kind of tendering cost estimation, and I've said this many times in the last 3.5 years, somehow the estimates from our consulting engineers are always off. Like I realize, you guys had Class C estimate when you were plugging into our budget. I understand, it was early days, your estimation may not be accurate, but then we have a consulting engineer comes back with a particular number and the bids are off by 50%. That makes me a little uncomfortable in the sense that it's just the whole process loses credibility because we have accepted a budget based on some of these estimates, right? And then to come back and put a plug saying, hey, you know what? There was a little bit of a discrepancy between our costing versus what came out. There's another $1 million that we need to be adding post-budget. It's just that process that needs to be a lot more rigorous, and that is where my struggle is. It's not, of course, none of us around the table, I'm sure, want to slow down on a critical infrastructure project. But when we say we are going to spend X million dollar, and it's plus or minus 50% suddenly post-budget, we collectively kind of lose credibility. And and I don't know how we will solve this issue, but this has been a ongoing issue every summer when we are looking at public work projects. That's all I had. Your
Thank
worship.
you. Any feedback or comments? Do you do, Engineer Line, like a debrief when there is this gap? Like, do we work with our consulting engineer to understand the magnitude of the gap and because you said there was some suggestion that maybe they didn't appreciate the rural nature of the work and is that a fact or is that speculation? Like, do we do an after action or a debrief with our consulting engineer to understand why we have this gap?
If I may,
Please.
especially on this one, because we had the Class C for quite a while, and
Yeah.
then I did discuss this with them, and they're like, yes, we should have informed you earlier that, with our UV decisions made, it did increase the cost. And so that was a fault on their end, but also I will share in that fault because, I was holding on to this 2025 cost and just coasting along. So I would say that the fault is shared.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton. Oh, sorry.
If I may, I
Please.
just would like to add a point to Councillor Ramadas's question. I don't think that this would decrease the confidence in the engineer's ability. The estimate that they revised before the tenders came in was 1.85 million, as Ms. Line presented, and the tenders came in at 2.03 million. So that's 90% of the cost. And I would say, and then the tenders were pretty close together. And so I don't think that that should undermine the engineer's ability to estimate the cost, because Fernie is a unique rural place. We've never built a UV system. So they're taking how engineers estimate costs is by taking comparable recent projects and look at the specifics and try to figure out what ours would cost based on other people's. And, they did that and they estimated the cost within relative accuracy. So I don't think it's fair to say that it was 50% difference. There was some other factors like the integration into the SCADA was also more expensive, 75,000, higher than we anticipated. And then I also did want to add, I would say this project is quite unique in that it's $1 million over the $1.5 million budget. Most of our other utility, whether they're diking projects or trying to think of other roadworks projects such as Cedar Avenue, the estimates are coming in accurately and the projects are being delivered within the budgets, and the budgets are developed a year in advance of the construction being tendered. So.
Well, I appreciate that clarity. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I too appreciate that clarity because I also had the note of, this isn't the first time that something's come back in short order that's significantly over what our budgeted amount was. But the question that I actually have is looking at our 2020, the idea of a 2027 increase or the moving forward plans. What grants exist that we might be able to secure for some of these? Are there any grants that might be out there that we could kind of a last minute application? I don't know if that's such a thing, but how are we seeking out and advocating for all the infrastructure money that is being purported by the province and the federal government more specifically?
Through to council, I don't have indication that there's a upcoming specific grant that would support treatment in our wastewater system. The grants that I see coming out are going to be very squarely focused on jobs and economic growth. And it's obvious to all of us who exist in a community that you need clean drinking water to continue to have employment. But this project isn't going to generate significant net new employment. And so it's going to be very hard to tie this to the signals that we see coming from the provincial and federal government in terms of what they're looking to fund.
Sorry, Councillor Adi Kelly, did you have your hand up? Thanks.
Couple of things, if you indulge me, Your Worship. Engineer line, you said something about a maximum. And I just was not sure what the maximum, did you mean the bid or we've tried to ensure that we've looked at high end? Was that what you meant when you said maximum?
If I may, I was referring to the cost estimate for the consultation. They looked at the schedule of the contractor for how many weeks they would be on site and then did full-time inspection for that and a lot of contract admin as well. So they put in a high cost estimate and but they only bill by the hour. So that one is the worst case scenario, as long as the contractor stays to their timelines.
Okay.
Further?
Yeah, and just one other thing, just because of the discussion we've had about the estimates and stuff. I was sort of the understanding that we have consulting engineers and sort of backup consulting engineers. So I'm just curious how we land on other engineers, consulting engineers, aside from, I sort of understood our primaries are ISL and McElhaney. And ISL and McElhaney work with us a lot and are probably really sort of comfortable with the constraints that we face being rural and all those other things. So I just wondered how we end up with like a third or a fourth, like a different engineering company, just out of curiosity.
If I may, Associated Engineering has been working with us on our Fairy Creek water source for quite a while, starting with the 2021 water Fairy Creek source to tap report. And then we have been following through with the recommendations of that to improve and strengthen our that source, including the reservoir rehabilitation that occurred 2 years ago, and then this UV treatment that was acknowledged in there and is necessary by our provincial government.
Further, Your Worship. So it's not that they weren't unfamiliar. It's more a case of maybe just unanticipated cost escalations above, because we keep hearing that of, like 38 times the price for fire trucks, for example, than had been anticipated. So is it just a case of that type of thing? Like costs have just escalated that quickly?
If I may, with this one, echoing Ms. Weir's comments, they were only 200,000, 300,000 off the construction estimate, which, with a contingency of 10% included, so that wasn't that bad, but it was much different than their Class C cost estimate of a year ago. So.
Thank you. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. Before I get to my question, I was just thinking that it's never great when estimates are far off and we have to do changes in the budget. No one likes it. I feel like, we've spent quite a bit of time trying to get a balance that's working for all the stuff, and then having to go back is not great. But I think it's worth pointing out that many projects sail through under budget. And the only ones that come back are the ones that are out of budget. So, it gives a superficial impression that, that these are all coming back. But in fact, it's the only ones that are kind of out of whack. And it's not surprising that some costs of some stuff are quite exorbitantly higher than a year ago. But that wasn't my question. My actual question is, do we have a ballpark for a filter plant if we don't get the exemption? What does that number look like?
It's like 15 to 20 million.
Is it more than 50 million? Less than 50 million?
Yeah, if I may, we have been working on another project with EVR and ISL, the options analysis project, and they have been doing very ballpark cost estimates for options to maintain 2 separate clean water sources, and they've estimated like Class D, Class E, 15 to 25 million for a filtration plant up at Fairy Creek.
Okay.
Mr. Barneski.
Thank you.
The additional note of context is then with north of $1.5 million to $2.5 million in basic operating expenses per year.
Yeah. Thank you. That's an important consideration. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Kevin McIsaac, Councillor McIsaac actually stole my question, but And I just wanted to make a comment that it's unfortunate that the legislative changes are not attached with money, which is really unfortunate, right? So because then we are put on the hook. But my question is, another question that I had was, now you made me all look at another thing on here. The other question is, if the selenium levels at James White have dropped to the point of being safe for us to use, can we use that as our primary water source versus, and then flip it so that, I mean, I know we've gone a long way down this road. We're about to give $2 million or spend $2 million on a UV system, but what about flip-flopping and having a primary source of James White if the selenium levels have dropped? Just a question.
If I may, James White wells were always as our secondary source, and our license to use that is not, doesn't give us the ability to use it year round like Fairy Creek. So we are only supposed to use it in times of the year like spring, summer, fall, when there could be turbidity at Fairy Creek. So that would be a big change that we would have to get approval on.
And probably not an overnight change. Thank you, Engineer Line. Councillor Shoesmith.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. We're so constrained just with how much control the province really has over us. I was going to express a lot of upset and such about this. It's obviously not very good, but I appreciate the candor and the openness about where we went wrong and what to do. I hope we don't wind up in this situation again in the future. I don't see that we really have any other option other than to do this. And for my money, I think we should probably just go with the utilities increase 2027, I think. I would be loath to delay other projects. I think we just have to swallow this pill.
Yeah, and just for clarity, I do have a proposed recommendation, but it doesn't specifically constrain us to one path. It says increase Fairy Creek U budget to 990 and amend the budget and financial plan as required. So that's a decision that will come at the 2020.
Right, as a downstream of this
as downstream.
motion.
Yeah, which I think is wise because, things change. So,
Yeah.
sorry.
I find it funny then that, I mean, I understand we need to make a motion, but it's not as if we can say no. Like,
We can.
well, yeah, and then what?
But it's not, I don't think it would be wise. But I think it allows us to, at least the way the recommendation is written, to move the item into the budgeting process and discuss it at that point in infinite detail as to what the best outcome is, what the best choice is. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I actually was prepared to move the number one because I really, really do not want to see us push any of our linear asset pipe work out at all. I think we have seen some pretty good examples in the past 3 years, Your Worship, of why that's not a good idea.
Councillor Ramirez.
I just had one question, Your Worship. If we did go the borrowing route in 2027, I'm not saying we are, but if we did, how will that actually clash with, let's say the fire hall goes through and we are in a borrowing mode right there? Like, how, does that jam up our payment schedules in 27, 28? Again, I'm not seeking answer here, but at some point, if that is available to us, then we can make a informed decision whether we need to borrow money or should we just increase our utility fees.
I don't want to speak for our acting director of finance, but I suspect that would be the analysis involved in the budgeting process, would be all the options and what the ramifications of each one would be.
Yeah, we would have to look at our liability servicing limit and just consider what the total fire hall cost would be and the additional borrowing. Just based off previous calculations with the fire hall borrowing, there would be still some limit there, but I just don't know exactly what the dollar value would be at this point.
Thank you. So with that, I will ask our corporate officer to read the recommendation.
Your worship and council, the staff recommendation is that council authorize staff to award the Fairy Creek UV system tender to Filtrum Inc. for $2,043,597.51, excluding GST, and that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to execute all documentation to execute the contract, and that council increase the Fairy Creek UV budget by $990,000 and amend the budget and financial plan as required.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Adia Kelly. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. On to you again, Engineer Line. So thank you. Item 11.3, utility improvements, contract results.
You'd think because I was already up here, I would have had it ready and you would have been wrong. Okay. So for my final report of the evening, I have an update on the progress of the 2026 Utility Improvement Program and hopefully obtain council authorization to contract the replacement and rehabilitation of existing sanitary and water infrastructure. 3 separate deep utility projects approved through the 2026 capital budget process were combined into one tender to provide a larger scope of work to interested parties for summer 2026 rehabilitation work. They are the Coal Creek sanitary main replacement. During the 2021 atmospheric river event, sections of the concrete encasement protecting a water main and a sanitary main that are laying upon the bed of Coal Creek were broken and removed by the creek. In 2024, the city carried out repairs by installing steel plates over top the exposed utilities in the creek. These repairs are only meant to be temporary fixes, while the city planned and budgeted for a permanent solution of relocating the mains on the underside of the Kato Road Bridge, projected 2029. Both lines are included in the updated IACP to be addressed in the short term. Unfortunately, last year, Coal Creek undermined the sanitary main by removing the gravel bed it was sitting on near the south bank. This new condition requires the plans to replace the sanitary main to be expedited to address the increased risk of failure. The water main, on the other hand, rests on bedrock. No concerns there. Thus, council approved just over $500,000 of funding for the design to relocate both utilities onto the bridge and the construction funding for the replacement of the sanitary main in 2026. We did designs for both utilities to ensure there wouldn't be any conflicts when we went to put both on the bridge, but we are only going ahead with the construction of the sanitary main. So that construction is the replacement sanitary main will tie to the existing network on Pine Avenue, then be attached to the downstream side of the bridge in an insulated sleeve as it is outside of the ground, and then connect back into the sewer network near the intersection of Kato Road and Montaigne Parkway. That's just over 190 meters of new gravity sewer that will be installed. The man streams upstream and down of the existing river crossing will be abandoned and the main will be left in place in the creek, though out of service. Currently, the city focuses on asset rehabilitation and often leaves the previous works abandoned in place to limit costs. Staff propose planning to remove this main and the water main at the same time in 2029 when the water main is moved to the bridge for cost and in-stream work approvals needed efficiency.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just thinking about leaving the sewer main there that's not being used, is there any risk to the water main should we have another significant atmospheric river or similar type event where that abandoned infrastructure could potentially cause damage to our active infrastructure?
If I may, the water main is actually upstream of the sanitary main. And in another similar event, what we believe but are unsure of is that rocks came down Coal Creek because it was so busy and it struck off the concrete main. That could occur again. Our steel plates will protect the main where it is protected, but the rest of the concrete could have a similar, so the risk remains.
Thank you.
The second job is the 16th Street water main replacement. Council approved $900,000 to design and replace a high-risk water main as identified by the IICP update. The chosen asset is a 1925 era 400 millimeter diameter cast iron distribution water main that runs along 16th Street in the annex from 12th Avenue to 9th Avenue. It's just under 300 meters long. A lot of numbers, sorry. This main is a high priority to replace due to its age and importance to the main town water distribution network. During this work, we will also kill 3 defunct alleyway galvanized water mains that branch off this main and dead end, reducing potential sources of leakage. We'll also tie the new main into the network at each avenue. The old main didn't do that. This will strengthen the network and improve fire flows in the area. We are also replacing and upsizing a main in the alleyway between 9th and 10th Avenue due to its size and material. It also comes off this distribution main. It's currently a galvanized 19 millimeter diameter main that dead ends before 15th Street. That size of main is more often seen on a service, not a main. So we are updating it to a 100 millimeter or 4-inch main. And we will tie into the services existing on that alleyway. It will also tie to 15th Street as well, so improving the network as well that way. And 3 additional hydrants will be installed to update the area to the city's 90-meter hydrant spacing requirements. And finally, $60,000 was approved by council in the 2026 budget to replace large diameter, poor condition distribution water main valves in the downtown core. 2 350 millimeter diameter wheel valves from also 1925, a popular year for water infrastructure, along 3rd Street were included as optional work in the tender with the intent to replace them with new valves of the same size and include bypass piping to support easier operations.
Sorry, Engineer Line. Councillor Audie Kelly.
I wanted to ask about the water main, because I know staff is suggesting we could not do it right now. But when we did talk last week and I had asked for clarification about the water valves, Director Weir described them as fragile. So fragile is a scary word to me in water main like talk. Maybe in engineers world, fragile's not that bad, but to me that was like, that doesn't sound good. So I was just curious about the, maybe if our acting director can help out, what our reserve balances look like before and after these projects if we still continue to do the valves.
And a related question is, what is the risk of not doing the valves?
While they look at numbers, which I will say that in our previous report, we are using up almost all the capacity for the UV treatment upgrade, just not even talking numbers at all. These valves do work. They are just very old. So they should have been replaced by now anyways. And we just didn't know the cost to do the replacement. And now they have been out to tender as an optional item. We do understand now about how much it will cost to replace and add bypass piping. And so staff suggests rolling it into the next water main replacement program with like updated cost estimates for that.
And sorry, that would be, and I apologize because that's in the report, but when is that?
So based on the UV project, The plan would be to do a larger water main replacement program in 2028.
Okay, thank you. Director Weir?
If I may, I just wanted to add, the nice thing about valves is that we were still able to shut down that area. It just requires a larger shutdown of the area. So it was a lot more complex to facilitate the tie-in to the 692 3rd Ave, and we impacted more of our customers because we used a larger shutdown area. But there is some redundancy in that we were able to do work in that area without using one valve by using a different set of valves, if that's
So-
any
So
assurance to the risk.
thank you for that, but deferment of this doesn't pose a significant risk to any single piece of infrastructure. Okay, thank you. That was my primary question. Councilor Ravenous?
Thanks, Your Worship. Then it begs the question, why did it move up on the IICP criticality list? Like if it doesn't pose any risk, why is it high on the IICP?
If I may, these valves weren't on the IICP.
Okay,
Yeah, no.
okay.
Do we want to talk numbers or do we
Oh.
want, yeah.
We have the numbers? Awesome.
Your worship, through to Councillor Audia Kelly. These projects are somewhat interconnected through the water program. So depending on what happens with the last project that we heard from Engineer Line, it will kind of determine what additional utility fee increase we need to also continue with the water valve replacement. Because it is an additional $40,000 that currently, if we move forward with the other project, would require us to increase utilities to ensure that we don't go into a deficit in the reserve, which we can't do.
Right.
An invitation to tender was issued April 17th with a closing date of May 8th. 3 completed tenders were received and reviewed for accuracy by our consultant on this project, ISL. The tenders were evaluated for accuracy and compliance with the city's instructions to tenderers. Now, this tender is a bit different because it combines the design and construction projects funded through separate streams, the water, roads, and sanitary reserves. These budgets cannot be pooled together. They can only fund their respective design, construction supervision, contract administration, and construction works. So the tender evaluation breaks down the bids into each category for evaluation. And includes the consultant design and contract support work in the total estimated cost column. The milestone equipment contracting submission was the lowest bidder. However, their bid for the valve replacement work exceeded that component. As a result, staff do not recommend going ahead with that work. Furthermore, the city,
Well, Councilor Audia Kelly and then Councilor McIsaac.
I also recall from last week, in line with the utility fee increase, we were planning on using that money, I believe it was a 5-year time horizon, to look at C&L right away. So kind of wondering how that all fits together as well with these projects.
If I may, we looked into that after that conversation last week, and Director Burdett's budget had included all the short-term linear infrastructure upgrades as identified in the IICP update. I don't remember the millions of dollars for sanitary or water, but his rate and proposes increase, it did include for that IICP linear work.
Thank you. Councilor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. This is, I'm sure this is going to be a dumb question, but it is rare in my experience here that we don't have to dig up some road to do pipe replacement. How can they possibly not work together budget-wise? Like, it's almost every single time we have to do both of them. So like, is that a failing of how we've organized it, or is that a failing of how the rules are imposed on us?
If I may, and I may be, so we did a couple different things this time around. The water main rehabilitation is for 16th Street, and we decided that there was a large enough street component that we did pull that out and pull that money from that that streets reserve for the water main rehabilitation street portion. However, we did not do that on the Coal Creek one. So Coal Creek Sanitary Main and the required street rehabilitation there will be all paid out under the sanitary in this time.
So that we can do that. It was a matter of choice in this circumstance.
Yes. And maybe going forward, there should be a more route way to do it. But we are doing it both ways this time.
Okay, sorry, it's just, maybe I misunderstood because it sounded like you had said, we can't co-use them. We have to only pay for roads with roads and only pay for pipe with pipe money and so on. Maybe I misunderstood what you had said there.
If I may, it's just that whenever for these budgets, because we did divide it out 16th Street water main rehabilitation, then 16th Street road component, then Coal Creek sanitary, which includes a rehabilitation of the road, but we didn't request a budget from council from the road reserve for that. So that's how they are broken out.
Okay, I get you. Thank you.
If I could add one more piece as well. My understanding from discussions with Director Burdett is we can choose where to fund the road on top of a utility replacement, but it doesn't go the opposite way. Like we can't use other reserves to fund the water pipe replacement
Right.
because that's specifically funded through the utility rates as opposed to general taxation. So the roads could be moved either between the transportation reserve or if they're necessitated by the replacement of the water main, then they could be covered under the water budget, but not the opposite.
Okay.
That's excellent clarity. Thank you.
Mr. Bornowski, was that what you had your hand up for, or did you have another comment?
No, Councillor Tracy Kelly asked a very astute question about the CNL right-of-way, and the response was very accurate. The linear assets are included. Just as a refresher to council, that does mean the facilities are not included in the ICP at this point. And for the community watching, we're going to be doing condition assessments for all of our facilities. Those pump houses are facilities, so those numbers will change.
Back to you, Engineer Line.
Thank you. The city typically holds a 10% contingency amount through construction. The above chart shows the remaining budget available for contingency. Only the road rehab has over 10%. Staff suggests canceling the main town valve replacement project for 2026, deferring their replacement to a future year, and returning those funds to the water reserve, and increasing the water main rehabilitation project budget by $20,000 in order to make up to a 10% construction contingency. However, you'll notice that the Coal Creek Sanitary only has a 6%, and we are not suggesting pulling additional budget from sanitary reserves to increase the Coal Creek Sanitary contingency at this point. There is limited budget available everywhere and too many projects to fund. Of course, all budget not spent during construction will be returned to their respective reserves. With council's endorsement, construction is anticipated to begin late June and will be substantially complete by the end of by early October. Both the 16th Street water main replacement and the Coal Creek Sanitary main replacement will be in parts or all within existing roadways and will impact traffic. During construction, the contractor will be responsible for providing detours, temporary road closures if needed, and all that information will be sent to us, and the city's communication team will publicly share that contractor's construction notices and timelines. We also do review the road closures or temporary detour plans before it goes out to try and lessen the impact as much as possible on our residents. Furthermore, there are 3 projects set to be completed in the 2026 construction season in the Coal Creek, Pine Avenue, Kakedo Road area. This one. Then there is the Pine Avenue Bridge repairs and improvements to the pedestrian underpass along Coal Creek at the CPKC Rail Bridge. if required permitting and permissions are received from external agencies in time. We know all that is going on, and we are set for coordination of those three projects to prevent conflicts and schedule delays between the three. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ramirez.
Thanks, Your Worship. Maybe engineer already answered this question, but I just want to ask once more. In light of, the annex rehabilitation over the last 3 years, Cedar Avenue, and, there's always going to be someone who is going to be annoyed with these public projects. It's just the nature of the beast. And how are we going to manage that communication part this time around? I understand you will put out social media postings and things like that, but you still know there will be those edge cases where people are really angry or not satisfied or something else. Like, is there any special sort of care that we are going to take with this? Because it appears like these are massive projects for a couple months.
A few notes on that. With these projects, we're not improving the road cross sections on any location. We are replacing like with like. So there should not be people that are annoyed that we are dramatically changing the roads or adding in sidewalks or something like that. So hopefully that contingent will be okay. And then we've already introduced the concept of the 16th Street water main to residents in that surrounding area, as in the spring, we did investigations for services, and so had to temporarily shut down mains to check where water service lines tied into the network to confirm and finish the design there. So they have been notified that there was most likely to be a 2026 water main replacement of 16th Street coming their way. And then there will be a push, like we always do, of contacting the residents directly impacted by these jobs with notices, and then also doing quite a lot of communications, Fernie.ca, Facebook, our cork boards and things to keep everyone up to date.
Councillor Odia Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to make sure that I really have understood clearly. And thanks, Engineer Line. I really appreciate the effort and the work that staff has taken and the care. So I just want to make sure I understand. We're fairly safe to put the valve process off to 2028, because if we were to pursue it now, it would put us into about a $40,000 deficit in the reserve, is I think what I heard, or is it 60? I thought I heard 40.
It would be net 40, I
Net
believe.
40. Okay. So we will also, what factors in there are the other projects that rely on those reserves. And that's something that we'll go into the next budget discussion. Okay. So I did understand all that clearly. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Smith. Okay. I think the presentation is done. Yeah.
This is a really great presentation. I really like everything going on in here. I had planned on saying we really should get those valves replaced a lot sooner. Although in light of what I've learned, I'm comfortable deferring that.
Mhm.
Although I will add, there's almost nothing as scary as turning a sketchy water main on or off. Like, it is one of the most nerve-wracking things you could possibly do. So yeah, if you've never experienced it, it's just absolutely like, yeah.
I'm hoping to avoid it.
Yeah.
Director Breer.
On the topic of the valves, I did just want to add one more point of clarity, which is why were they included in the budget if they weren't in the IICP? So the IICP is our long-term, citywide master planning document where we're using best, known information about age and condition to make those recommendations. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be things that come up in regular operations where we know those valves were from 1925, but they weren't prioritized because other stuff had factors that made it come to the top. But when we go out and utilize the components of the system like we did for that tie-in, and the operators bring forward, hey, this is really old and looks like it might be breaking, that's an example of how things will continue to pop up and get added to infrastructure needs beyond what we can reasonably plan for at a high level master planning document.
Thank you. Councillor McIsaac and then Councillor Ramanathan.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I just wanted to show my appreciation as well. This is like 4D chess managing all the infrastructure here, and I really appreciate that. You know, there is certainly a lot of concern about how expensive linear assets are to maintain and build and stuff over long term. And I appreciate that we've spent, staff has spent a lot of time on the plan for this and trying to find the best use of the limited funds to improve it going over the long term. It's a lot of work. It's very appreciated. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Ramanathan.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just echoing what Councillor McIsaac is saying, like what is pleasing here is you're not just relying on ISCP engineered document, but you're also relying on the knowledge of operators out there in the field who are bringing that up, and you're not really tied to just street jacketing yourself to an ISCP document, but you're also taking that continuous improvement approach here. Just that's amazing. Well done.
Thank you. Councillor Oddie Kelly.
Like to move, Your Worship, that we endorse staff's recommendation.
Could I get you to read it, please, Corporate Officer?
Yes, Your Worship. Your Worship and Council, the staff recommendation is that Council authorise staff to award the 2026 utility improvements contract to Milestone Equipment Contracting for $1,398,660.50, excluding GST. That Council authorise the Mayor and Corporate Officer to execute all documentation to execute the contract, and that Council increase the water main rehabilitation project budget by $20,000 and cancel the $60,000 Maintown valve replacement project, amending the budget and financial plan as required.
Moved by Councillor Oddie Kelly, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any further discussion? Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. A lot of the times I've just been thinking about this. A lot of the times we use acronyms here just for simplicity's sake, but the Integrated Infrastructure Capital Plan is the IICP. So just to let people know what that is, and it can be found on our website as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's important. Thanks very much. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Engineer Line.
And now I'll take my leave of you.
Item 12.1, a notice of motion. Councillor Nixon, I'll ask you if you could to read your motion.
Thank you, Worship. I'll just read it. Yeah, be it resolved that Council directs staff to bring back a report to investigate the feasibility of installing smart sensor units on city light infrastructure, including engaging with livable cities to understand sensor capabilities and infrastructure requirements, exploring pilot project options in key areas such as high traffic areas and Highway 3, identifying potential benefits, costs, and funding sources, and determining if we have the staff capacity to interpret the data, and ensuring appropriate safeguards for personal information in accordance with privacy legislation.
Moved by Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor Ramadus. Any discussion? Councillor Shoesmith.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. I'm tentatively supportive. I do have misgivings about totalizing data and managing absolutely everything, but I think that this will be useful if we get it. So I think it's well thought out and not a bad idea.
Director Weir.
I was hoping for the opportunity to ask council a few questions that would really help us to, if you do move this motion, to provide a little bit more information about what you're trying to achieve. So I was just wondering, I did have a look at the information on the site and whatnot, and there's a lot of sensors. And so I was hoping to understand what is the type of data that you're specifically after? Is it traffic counts, or is it, there's air quality sensors, surveillance and safety, sensors that turn lights on and off? So there's, noise, a huge variety of sensors out there, and Livable Cities is just one supplier of the sensors. So there's, lots of options for suppliers. And so this is a very good timeline, good timing for this, because we're about to issue, we have the RFP drafted to replace, 270 light bulbs this coming summer. And so if you did want to get action on this, doing it quickly would be helpful to the work that's already underway. And so if I could get some of that information at this juncture, it would help me to know whether to pause that project or whether we can just include in our RFP, optional items for pricing.
Well, thank you for the question. I know one of the things when this was originally surfaced was Livable Cities provided for, I think, a 1-year data pilot for various communities. Now, I don't know if that's still valid and whether we could, with the RFP you're talking about in terms of, and when you say changing light bulbs, I hope people appreciate it's not we're just going around screwing in a bunch of light bulbs. It's it's an endeavor in terms of our street lamps and street lighting. Councillor Nixon, any comments?
I think that when we looked at it in Calgary at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, it was the air quality that was a concern as well. But then they showed us the traffic data as well that could be collected. And one of the big things for me was the fact that we don't know, we have to rely upon somebody else for the amount of traffic that's coming through our community. And it will measure the speed of the cars, it will measure the amount of cars, and they're totally modular units. You can just take them off and move them to another spot once you've collected data there for a year or 2 years or whatever. So they are reusable. It is a subscription based as well. From my understanding, that was from 2 years ago. They are sponsoring a lot of events at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities in Edmonton next week. And so we could connect with them there and then have them talk directly with you if you'd like. That's the way you'd like to be.
Mayor, through to Councillor Nixon, I'm more than happy to reach out to that company and get the information and ability of the sensors and whatnot. I would just flag that typically if we were going to procure a new technology, we would put it to market, and we're about to go to market for replacing the heads on, I think I had the numbers. So we have 278 streetlights, 100 and change, like 110 are decorative. And so we're about to replace the 178 heads on all of the streetlights we own this summer. And so certainly would be advantageous if we're already having somebody go up in a truck and replacing the head to make sure it's also potentially compatible with these sensors. And so that would be currently the fastest way to get the information in terms of specifically the cost of, would be putting it to market and saying, when we're replacing all these bulbs, we'd like an optional price on including the sensors.
Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. My recollection at the time talking to the people at FCM, we had just come off a particularly bad summer for wildfire smoke, and I think that was one of the reasons why they were leaning quite into the air quality information. At the time, their proposal was for 10 air quality sensors that they would supply for a year. That was the offer at that time. It is several years ago now. So that was interesting. Now we've had better summers since then, but certainly we don't have any other resources for data like that should we have significant wildfire problems again. So that was one I think that was valuable. The one that also stood out for me too was the traffic management, specifically because we have had many members of the community come forward with concerns about, and not entirely on Highway 3, but to be specific to Highway 3, tractor trailers speeding through red lights, tractor trailers speeding through town at high speeds, people failing to stop for lights, people failing to stop for children's crosswalks and so on. And unfortunately, without actual data collected, we're left with anecdotal stories, and it's very difficult to respond appropriately to anecdotes. It's not that I disbelieve them, it's just that when we're making the argument to the provincial government that they need to manage speed control or change the lighting and so on, we need data to back up our argument. And this is an option for us to look at. So the two that really captured my attention at the time of the discussion was the air quality, because we didn't have any management for that with wildfire smoke. And the other one was the traffic information that was potentially gleanable. And there might be, like, I can think of a good example is the First Ave complaints about speeding and stuff so down there. So we've done some speed mitigation and so on. But again, we're doing it in the absence of knowing actually how big the problem is. So I appreciate that the corporate officer has brought forward the security concerns. I think that's important to put in there. But most of these things don't have the resolution to like pick up a license plate. It's just the car counts and speeds and so on, which is not to say that we should ignore that, but we should pay attention to it. And the final thing I want to say is that appreciating what Engineer Weir said about with regards to going out to market. The motion, as it says right now, says such as those offered by, which leaves open the opportunity to go to market and choose from whatever appropriate vendor we can find. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sue Smith, and then Councillor Ramirez.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. I confess I'd somewhat naively thought this would be a very small lift and expense. And my only concerns around this that really weigh heavily on me here have to do with the fact that we have a limited pool of well, I was going to say manpower, but that's the wrong word. Capacity, yes. And the same people who are doing a whole bunch of other really high impact, high priority stuff would be the people doing this. So I'm not opposed. I believe the wording was assess the feasibility. I'm not opposed with taking a look at it, but if it comes back that this would be a larger lift, I don't think I would support it after that point if it was something that would sap capacity.
Yeah, and I think very astutely that was why our Director Weir came to the podium to understand the scope of what we're proposing here. Councillor Ramirez?
Yeah, Your Worship, maybe I'm repeating myself that other people have already spoken about, but I think the risk here is always going to be you can do a million different things, right? We just have to narrow the scope as much as possible. And just from the experience in the last 3.5 years, I can think of 2 instances where a lack of data was a real issue for us in making good decisions. First one was when we had that illumination, the BC Hydro, people were complaining about streetlights being too bright. That was one instance that comes to my mind. And obviously the second one was with Dickon Road. And every time we have any kind of traffic related work, we tend to have no data at all. So I would say my recommendation would be to narrow down the scope as much as possible for relevant areas. And the 2 things that came to my mind were illumination and traffic. That was one thing, Your Worship. And the second observation, and I'm sure the staff knows this better than I do, but I did just look it up online after Councillor Nixon sent this proposal. And I believe that, those guys have more AI capabilities these days. And there is a federal government funding also to this private entity also. So there's always going to be opportunity for, analyzing that information that may not necessarily be at the cost of city staff's capacity, but the private company might be able to give that information.
Thank you. With that, I will call the vote. We have a mover and seconder, correct? And Councillor McIsaac? Oh, Councillor Ramirez, sorry, yeah. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Item 14.1 under correspondence, the Local Government Climate Action Program. There's a request for a letter to advocate for renewal of the program. And I'm in support of this, but I am curious because they're an injured line. Maybe you can speak to this. Have we received any funding specific or has LGCAP funded any projects specific to our community?
So yes, we've received funding in both 2022, and then we also received 3 years of funding in 2024. So it's a total of, it was 78,000 on the original amount, and then another 231,000 that we received.
And what was that specific to, just to give us a sense of why this would be important to our community? Because the issue for those at home is the funding has been stopped, and we want to advocate for it to potentially advocate for it to be reinstated.
Yeah, so we have utilized all the funding that we had received thus far. We purchased the EV vehicles to modernize our fleet and reduce operating costs. We get a reduced rate on the EV charging, and we did a quick look to see, and I think it was around $160 to $220 for both of the EV vehicles that the city staff utilize here. So the building officials have one vehicle, and it was only $160 to charge for the year. So that's a significant cost savings compared to what you would pay for gasoline and oil changes and
There's
stuff like
some
that.
vehicles that would cost you to fill the tank,
Yeah.
$160. Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
I was just going to say, can you repeat that number? Because I'm pretty sure that's less than it cost me to fill my tank on Saturday.
Mr. Bardowski.
Through to council, you'll recall when we added the EV chargers at City Hall and at the Visitor Information Center, we also partnered with the Community Energy Association to develop that program. And so we get a very reduced rate. But Ms. Mullen's right. The city card that's used for travel, conferences around town all the time, $305 for the year, 2025, for about 10,000 kilometers of use, maybe a little less. And then the building official EV, $164 for the year of use.
Thank you. I'll ask our corporate officer to read the recommendation if you don't mind.
Your Worship and Council, the recommendation is that Council authorise the Mayor to prepare a letter to advocate for the renewal of the Local Government Climate Action Programme, and that the Mayor be authorised to sign and send a letter to the Premier and Ministers on behalf of the City of Fernie.
Moved by Councillor McIsaac, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any further discussion? Councillor Ramirez.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just wondering, sure, we'll send a letter. But given the fiscal condition the province is in, what's the likelihood of them seeing this favorably? I'm not suggesting that we don't send a letter just because we might fail, but I'm just curious, we do these kind of things all the time. Is anybody pretty confident that someone is going to read this and actually action it out?
I think it's sort of, just at a macro level, it would depend on how many communities actually support this. And I think a lot of communities are responding. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I was just going to say that the result we will see if we don't send the letter is nothing. So at a minimum, the time and energy to send a letter has a return.
Councillor Kelly.
I just wanted to, I believe Councillor McIsaac said last time, the funding's gone, but the requirements aren't. So,
Can you speak to that? Sorry.
yeah, could you speak to that,
Oh,
Councillor?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yes, that's the unfortunate reality is that the provincial government has required municipalities and local governments to improve their energy efficiency and respond to climate change and a bunch of various regulations. This particular funding was put in place specifically to support us in being able to meet those requirements and legislative goals. They have taken away the funding, but they have not taken away the requirements. So yes, while I appreciate we're Councilor Ramadas's point here in that, you know, right now the cupboard is fairly bare and getting a significant financial commitment from the province at this point in time seems unlikely. We are in good company in asking. UBCM and area associations and municipalities and local governments all around the province are asking. And the province is faced with the same choice that we are, is if this is something that is going to advance their other goals, and it can be done through doing this, then that maybe means that some other thing is going to have to be less well-funded so that this can go forward. That's their job, is to decide how to do that resource allocation to accomplish all these things. Our job is to say we will benefit from the application of that project or one that is similar to it in meeting the energy efficiency and climate change goals that we have and that they've asked us to do. So I think we'd be remiss if we didn't point that out to them. I think that's part of our job.
Councillor Kelly.
So further, if I've understood Councillor McIsaac correctly, the requirements remain, so the only other way we'd have to fund them would be through taxation.
Correct.
Or just not doing things.
Or-
Just in some
Choose
cases,
not
it
to
would
do them.
mean just delaying
Yeah.
and not meeting, you know, greenhouse gas emission goal,
But if
whatever,
there's-
whatever those things happen to be, would mean we're not going to be able to do that. Yeah.
Or if it's something that we're required to do,
Then we're gonna have to.
then
fund it
we're
through
going to have to,
Other modes.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And then, of course, the late item. I don't know if anybody had any comments on the response from the Ministry of Transportation and Transit regarding our Hartley Creek Bridge letter. No comments? With that, we will move on to council's reports. But before we go to council reports, I just had some comments. Because this is the first time we've had council reports since we had somebody in public participation as a Cranbrook resident, as it turns out, provide us with some comments about council reports and suggesting that we avoid I statements in our council reports. And the implication being that councillors are tooting their own horn or totaling up their accomplishments. And I know I don't need to share this for folks at home, but I wanted to be very clear that those I statements typically highlight events that the council is attending in the community. And in doing so, council is highlighting all the great stuff that we get to take part in, not just as council, but as a community largely, because of the efforts of a wide array of dedicated community groups whose work we all benefit from here in Fernie. And as well, some of those I statements are to highlight learning that councillors are bringing back to the city, often in the context of engagement with other local governments and organizations. They're bringing this learning back to our community, and each and every idea adds to the opportunities to improve our processes and consequently the quality of life for our residents. Finally, there was also a suggestion that we should focus on what we hear directly from the residents of Fernie. I, for one, can attest to the fact, and I think I speak for all our councillors, that every decision at this table is very well informed by the conversations we're having in this community. It's why we're all here. So I just wanted to clarify for those at home, that's the purpose of our council reports. And I would encourage our councillors to continue with their presentations in the way they see fits best for our community. So I just wanted to go on the record with that. And with that, I will start with Councillor Shoesmith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. In light of our recent castigation, Councillor Shoesmith will be giving Councillor Shoesmith's report in the third person. He was surprised and saddened to learn that we're going to be losing our majors over at the Sally Ann. Councillor Shoesmith rather enjoyed their company and they've been excellent. But I guess Councillor Shoesmith is eager to meet our new majors. Furthermore, Councillor Shoesmith is still looking for victims and participants at the Dunk Tank for Canada Day. All of the local charities are all coming together again for that.
Count me in.
Absolutely. They're having a meeting about that right now that I would be at. Or, oh, that Ted Shoesmith would be at if he wasn't here. And with all that being said, Councillor Shoesmith only has one final thoughts. He really doesn't like the term linear assets. He thinks that they're fantastic. They should be tubular assets, henceforth. That's all.
Thank you on behalf of Councillor Shoesmith. Councillor Nixon.
How do I?
I wouldn't try.
I'm just going to say Councillor Nixon will participate in the dunk tank. So that's what I was going to say. But it was a real privilege to be invited to by Nisuka and Gravel and the Council of the Yaqqa-Ayakqaliit for a community-to-community update. I want to thank them for the invitation and the honor of being able to share a meal with them. I also want to thank our staff and their staff who facilitated this and attended. It was a wonderful meeting. I'm really quite proud of our community and the relationship that this council and the last council had built. It's quite special. I'm looking forward to my first meeting with Tourism Fernie as their liaison this Thursday. There's also a social, but I have family in town, so I can't do that. I'm also looking forward to the Federation of Municipalities next week in Edmonton. I expect that our Prime Minister will be there, and if I get a chance, I will whisper new municipal growth framework in his ear. So, hopefully. Yeah, and just with all these questions about water and drinking water and all the requirements and stuff like that, please don't go down to Highway 3 and drink the water there. It's just groundwater. It's coming out of a pipe. It's not spring. So please don't drink that. And that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, good point, Councillor Nixon, because if anyone's ever had, I'm probably saying this wrong, but Giardia, AKA beaver fever, you don't want to have that. Trust me. I wanted to say that I was so sorry I couldn't go to Yaqqa-Ayakqaliit, and I think it was wonderful that they hosted our council. Sadly, my day job kept me away. I did attend the last Business Banter and Beer with the Chamber and Rocky's Law, and it was really good, and as they always are. And congrats to the folks at Rocky's Law on their new merger. I wanted to mention a couple of things coming up that were highlighted on our Facebook page. We're doing some work on our City Hall steps. So on June 1st, it will be closed to the public, but you can come on over to the Senior Center to see staff and council at Council Cafe. I am really excited that I'm going to the FSS musical tomorrow night. 9 to 5 should be fun. The kids always do such a great job. And last evening, I attended a farewell dinner for Majors Rick and Jen, and just echoing Councillor Shoesmith, they have done so much for the community and they really are going to be missed. And Nanaimo is lucky to be getting them, and looking forward to meeting our new majors, because as we know, the service that they do in the community is very much needed. Just to highlight that there is significant food insecurity in the community, and they also help people out, with mental health, and just being there as a support network for folks at the Major Rick and Jen both have been phenomenal at that. So thank you very much to them, and you'll be truly missed. And that's all for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. I would like to echo everything that Councillor Nixon said about our visit to the Yaqqa-Ayakqaliit. It was super fun. It was only unfortunate that we'd waited so long since our last visit, so hopefully that becomes a much more regular event. It's great building bridges. It's always very positive work. The only other thing I had is a recent board meeting with the library, and I was very delighted to hear that one of the board members had gone to an event with the Kootenai Library Federation, and had brought back so much great information about what other libraries are doing and how they're resolving individual problems and things like that. And this is, I mean, as we all heard about it at the last UPCM, libraries around the province are stressed, and they are all working hard together to support one another. And I was very impressed with the board, with their foresight and consideration and willingness to work together with the other libraries. It was great to see. It was a good meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Ramirez?
Thanks, Your Worship. Quite a few things here. Again, I had the fortune to at least virtually attend the YQT meeting there. Excellent presentation from the staff, great conversation, and great work, Your Worship. The way you kind of frame the entire issue and the challenges that we have with wastewater, I think that was excellent. And also the two councillors chiming in. It was I was not there, but still, for someone who was sitting away, it felt like it was a very productive conversation. Well done to everyone here. We all attended the local government week also. That was quite enjoyable at the library, and at the same time, I was also trying to high off my time at the board meeting at the Fernie District and Arts. Again, some really excellent work going on in there. Like the amount of care that team has towards not just their own organization, but also towards the community is pretty remarkable. And the amount of time they're actually spending looking at budgets, it feels like we are actually not doing as much work as they are. So commendable work from the staff and their board membership there. I too, like Councillor Adia Kelly, looking forward to attending the FSS theatre night. And also, I believe there is also a speak off contest at the academy where the rural kids and the Fernie Academy kids go one-on-one on debates. I'm looking forward to that this week as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I'm not sure if anybody else saw the webinar that was put on by Minister State Anderson yesterday morning around CETA, the Canada-European Trade Agreement. It was an extremely enlightening presentation with the French consul and a number of EU representatives on the trade agreement and the work that's going in to help diversify our economy and our trading partners, particularly focusing on the Western provinces, BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan in particular. One of the stats that they threw out there was since the implementation of CETA, there's been a 51% increase in trade between Canada and the EU, and that 98% of all goods produced in Canada are now covered. So they're working on services and how to start supporting more trades and services, but the mechanics of doing business in Europe now have fundamentally changed and are significantly more in our favor. So for local and regional businesses who are looking to expand their markets, I would certainly recommend looking into the Canada-European Trade Agreement and talking to export partners on how to start marketing there. This past weekend, I was in Invermere with Fernie United Soccer and all of the Fernie teams who participated there. Well done. There was some mixed results depending on the teams, but by all accounts, everybody had a great time and the weather was quite lovely. The community meeting, council meeting with Yakitak Nucleate was fantastic. And the two things that I am looking forward to coming up are FCM next week, but also the grand opening of the Coal Creek Heritage Bridge on June 13th. And I did have the website open here. There is an option to attend and get a ride out there, or if you've got a bike, pedal out there for it. I think the meeting place is at the Aquatic Center, but I don't I should have double checked that before I made mention of it.
I understand they'll also get you a bike if you need a bike.
Yeah, and yeah, if you want a bike, but you don't have a bike, they will help find it. So reach out to the Trails Alliance as soon as possible so that they can source that on your behalf. Other than that, I appreciated Councillor Shoesmith's report.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have a lot to add. Much of it, sort of looking back, a number of us attended in Elkford an Elk Valley solid waste management workshop with the community of Canmore, and it was incredibly valuable and really interesting. And you know, appreciate the staff that joined us up there. I thought that was really useful and great conversations. And you know, it's a challenge around the province. It was a little bit alarming. I felt like we were a bit of a bad actor, but there's a lot to learn from our cohort of other communities who are dealing with this issue. Local Government Awareness Week, yeah, big thanks to staff and others who participated in that. And particularly with the Fernie Heritage Library, and they're hosting our council cafe that evening. And I want to also give a shout out to Laura from Seaball. I was always participated in story time with the mayor, and she makes it so much fun. It's an absolute riot. So I will actually miss that, participating in that going forward. Again, our community meeting with Yakutat Nucleate, very much appreciated. Very much appreciate those folks from council who could attend, and want to say a big thank you to the staff that attended, and a special mention for Director Weir and the narrative she provided around our wastewater challenges, which I think very much helped that community understand where we are and how committed we are to resolving that issue. So thank you for that. And yeah, would also share in the accolades for Major Rick and Major Jen, and just for anyone who's interested, their final service with the Salvation Army Church is on June 28th. So if folks are available to that, a good opportunity to say a fond farewell as they head off to Nanaimo. So thank you. And if there is nothing else, we will adjourn our meeting at 9:06